Alright, welcome back. So we're gonna do the melee attack animation this time. We can start with something simple and we can gradually make it a little bit more complicated down the way. So let's create something called a animation montage. The reason we're doing that is because when we're doing this gameplay, we can move around, and when I hit the attack button, maybe the left mouse button, right? That should be the attack. And what I'm expecting is I should expect the character is still playing the moving the running animation, but on top of the body we're having the attack. Okay, that means we have to somehow montage it with the animation we're currently having. Okay, you can montage animation in the animation blueprint using the game logic, but you have to have a location for that montage to happen, and that's what we need. That's something we call a slot. You can create a slot, okay, and you can play your animation montage on that slot. So when that animation montage is played in that particular slot, like down the way in the animation graph, it's gonna override the inputs and temporarily making your animation playing the montage. And then when the montage is over, then it goes back to the original animation you passed in. Anyway, you will see that in action later on, if that doesn't really make sense now. So what we do here is create that montage first. So I'm going to right click here and say animation montage, and choose the skeleton here, and I can call this guy AM. Should be let's call this MeleeAttack, or just melee. Now double click to open it. And animation montage, you can think of it as just a little bit more complicated animation asset that does have multiple animations you drag in. You can create a playlist for those different animations. You can trigger notifiers. You can have curves, of course, all those basic stuff also. So for now, this animation montage is empty. It's like a playlist with nothing. So I'm gonna go grab one of the attack. So let's search for melee. I'm going to use this primary melee B slow for now. Let's drag this guy into the default settings. And if you go ahead and play the animation, you can see it's now playing that one animation. It's a playlist with one song inside of it, right? One animation. And that's for now what we need. Okay. And right on the right side of this animation list, you can see this slot, and it's using the default slot. And if you go down, you can see there are a lot of slots here already. Okay, and I'm gonna create my own slot. So to do that, you can click on this animation slot manager, and then you can add a new slot. I'm gonna actually create a new group first. I'm gonna call this one my animation group or Shinbi group, whatever you want to call it. So that will be something you can do, and then you can add a slot and you can give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call this one let's just call this ability slot. That's where I'm going to run my ability. Okay, alright, now here in the montage, I can then switch the slot from default to Shinbi ability. There's a bug here. If you do that, it's gonna go back to the default binding pose, which is not what we want. The only solution I know now is just close this and reopen it, and that should fix the problem. Okay, so don't worry about that if it goes something weird. So now we have this animation montage. It has one animation, and it's supposed to be played on a slot called Shinbi ability. Okay, so when we actually ask this montage to play, it's going to look for a slot in the animation blueprint and see if there is a slot positioned or placed in the animation graph. If there is, it's going to play this animation on top. So let's go ahead and create that slot. Back here to the blueprint. Let me dock it here. What I want to do is create a slot. Okay, this slot can be any slot. You can create a slot here, just add any name you have already, because you can change it here. So after this, I'm going to change the slot to the Shinbi ability. Now connect my locomotion to source, and the result goes to the results. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, the slot. Okay, So now if we ask in anywhere in the blueprint, if we say play that animation montage, then that animation montage, this one, will look for the Shinbi ability slot will be actually over here, and it's going to play animation on top of this slot. So whatever is passed in will be overridden by the montage we're playing here, which is going to be this MeleeAttack animation. And when that animation is over, right, it's going to go back and say, okay, I have done with the animation, you can now pass through without being overridden. Okay, so that's basically what this slot is. Okay, all right, compile and save that. So we have the slot, we have the montage is playing on that slot. All I have to do now is say play that animation montage, and that can be done in the character. So we can say go back to the character, and I'm going to double click to open it. I'm going to implement a custom event. Okay, and this event I can say, how about MeleeAttack? Okay, and when we do this, we can then say play montage. Okay, and we can do play animation montage. Okay, and then the montage to play is going to be the montage we just created. That is the animation. Animation montage should be melee. Okay, so whenever this event is triggered, then it's going to play this animation montage, and we can trigger this event in wherever we can have a reference of this character, basically. And I set up all my controls from the controller, so I'm going to do it right here. Oh, and of course I need a key banding here, so let's do that real quick. Underneath edit, project settings, and underneath inputs, I'm going to look for the action mapping and click to add one more, and this one will be let's just say primary attack. Okay, but this can be used for something else later on, so we may need to rename this to something like primary action. I think that's better, but whatever we're trying to do is, this is the left mouse button. So left mouse button. Okay, alright, so with that set it up, back to the player controller, I can then use that. So primary action here, and I'm just gonna get my pawn, and this time I do have to cast it to the specific type of the character base, because that's where I have that event. So let's drag from the SBP character base and just type in MeleeAttack. Okay, so whenever we click the left mouse button, this is going to be triggered, and it's going to call the MeleeAttack event in the character base, which is here, which will then play the animation montage. Okay, now back to the graph, go ahead and play and left click. You can see now she's playing that animation. Alright, really cool. So when this is done, then we can do some refining of this animation montage. For example, like if I'm running and I'm doing this animation, I kind of want the bottom part to be still kind of like playing the running animation instead of having that sliding, especially on the very end. You can see she's doing the sliding. I do have another problem here too, like when I keep clicking, she's just doing that. We can actually fix that later when we're actually implementing this in the MeleeAttack ability that we will do later on. But for now, let's actually move on to the next tutorial. We're going to fix the animation blending issue, which I do want the top to play the attack animation but keep the bottom doing the running. Okay, so we're going to do that in the next tutorial. See you next time.